Hello, hello. I see people starting to roll in now. So we'll allow for some time for people to join. I know there's probably a lot of Zoom and GoToWebinar fatigue, but we promise we'll keep it interesting and exciting for you. At the very minimum, you get to look at this beautiful face, and that's a win for all of us, I think. Oh, that's worth laughing for. Okay.
Definitely worth laughing for.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining. I'm going to kick us off real quick. So we'll start with introductions, and apologies in advance if my face freezes from time to time on video. My computer is misbehaving, so I will turn my camera off and on every once in a while, so I'll reappear. But my name is Jonathan LaCour. I'm the Chief Technology Officer here at Mission. I'll talk a little bit about who we are in a moment, but I want to also give Jason and Jeremy a chance to introduce themselves and talk a little bit about what they do.
All right. Hey, everyone. I'm Jason Gay. I am a senior cloud analyst here at Mission. I've been with the company for a little over 6 years now. And my focus, aside from helping our customers be awesome, is helping them save money. We like to really focus on getting people to spend money wisely in the cloud and not just spend money.
Right. Very nice. Jeremy.
Yeah, so hi everyone, my name is Jeremy McClay. I'm actually a cloud analyst, same as Jason for Mission. I've been Mission for 4 months, but before that I was actually 7 years working directly with AWS on their enterprise customer service team. So lots of experience in working with customers on analyzing their cost, how can they reduce cost, and just taking advantage of all the different services AWS has to offer to make sure they're getting the most out of they can out of it. So
outstanding. Well, thanks guys for joining. And yes, they are essentially the experts that you need to talk to if you are interested in cost optimization on AWS, which is, funnily enough, exactly the topic of our conversation today. And before we dive into the actual conversation around cost opt, let's talk a little bit really quickly about who Mission is. So Mission is a premier partner of Amazon Web Services. And we focus 100% on AWS. We have a variety of services, kind of broad scope to kind of help you one-stop shop for all your AWS needs. One of our core services is, in fact, cost optimization. The service that we have for that is called Cloud Foundation, and that's the team that Jason and Jeremy work on. But we also have, managed service called Mission Cloud One, which is to help you manage and monitor your environment. And we have partner-led support for AWS, and we also do professional services and consulting. So regardless of what your needs are, we're here to help. But let's now dive into a little bit about kind of cost optimization. And I think before we frame up the topic, I'd like to launch a quick poll to the attendees, and this will remain anonymous, just so you know. So answer with confidence, and it's okay. I won't share the results specific by name. It'll be anonymized. So this is just wanting to understand a little bit about the audience on a scale of 1 to 5, kind of how mature you think your organization's cost optimization strategy is when it comes to your cloud spend. So please do vote in the poll. Let us know what you think, and I'll share the results with the whole group, the aggregated results, once we get enough results in. So I see them flowing on the benefits of being an organizer, as I get to see the results before everybody else does. So it looks like we've got about, I think we have enough respondents now, so let's go ahead and display the results. Right, I'm gonna share it. So look at this. It looks like most people kind of find themselves right there in the sweet spot in the middle. And this is, I think, actually very indicative of what we see when we talk to customers. They frequently feel like they've got a grasp on the core concepts, and maybe they've even slightly operationalized it. Maybe they're buying reserved instances on a regular basis. Maybe have a savings plan, doing some right sizing, but maybe it's not a full center of excellence for their business. And that puts you around that 3 point. Good to see a couple more of you up at the 4. No one rates themselves at a 1 or a 5, so we've got the nice meaty middle to talk about here. So let's go ahead and hide the results. Okay.
Perfect bell curve.
Yes, exactly. And there I froze again. Okay, so a couple other items for you. So because we want this to be really interactive, we definitely want to just answer your questions. So this isn't a presentation. I don't have slides to share for you. We really are here to answer your questions. Now, we do have a variety of topics that we want to just kind of chat about, but I'd really like to focus it on your needs. So as we're going, you'll notice here in the GoToWebinar control, there is a section for questions and answers. So feel free to submit your questions there. There's also a chat function, and you can type into there and send messages too. I'll monitor both, and I'll make sure to get the experts the questions. But I thought that a really good place to start is to kind of frame how we kind of think about cost optimization as individuals and as a business. So just kind of a quick 1-minute beat on how we view cost optimization as a kind of a service and a skill. So
right,
Jason, maybe give us your view.
I will be happy to. Cost optimization is not a one-time event. It's a journey, and it's a never-ending journey. Really, it's an adventure. There's always going to be stuff to focus on. There's low-hanging fruit to pick off, and there's things you can work on. But as technology evolves, there's always going to be new stuff out there that gets introduced to your environment. There's going to be new ways to save money. There's going to be new ways to spend it. So really need to think about things. Looks like everybody here is, in the middle of their cloud journey. I don't think anybody's actually, just starting out in AWS. But the idea here is start at the drawing board, figure out what you need, and start planning for that while you're still in development, and then roll stuff into production. Don't over provision resources in development. Don't learn what your resources are going to be required to have for performance metrics.
Great, that's a good breakdown there, Jason. And I totally agree. I've been on the other side of it, outside, in industry, managing cloud spend for my own products and services in the past. And the key thing is, because AWS is on demand, you can do whatever you want, whenever you want to, and unless you have a lot of governance in place, you're in guardrails in place, it's pretty easy to see your cost spike because you have self-service capabilities, your developers spinning up things all over the place, and that's part of why cost optimization cannot be a one-time event, like Jason, like you said. It needs to be a continuous application of best practices, monitoring. It takes people, process, and tools, right? And we can definitely talk a little bit about the tools that are available and what we use, what we recommend. So that definitely is a topic we can touch on. But Jeremy, maybe give us a little bit of flavor from you. Is that kind of how you think about cost optimization as well?
Yeah, Jason said the word journey, and that's a very common word that I use whenever I'm talking to customers and anybody really about cloud and how to optimize, because it's not a destination, right? You have to, put one step after another and just kind of keep working on it, right?
Right.
The other example I like to give a lot of people is it's kind of like laying down strings of thread, and as your cloud infrastructure grows, you're adding more and more thread to it. If you don't have everything governed properly the first time, it just becomes a tangled knot. And then you got to figure out, where do I need to go and how can I untangle it? And if it keeps growing, it's going to be more and more of a problem, and you have to do more work later. So start early, right?
You want that thread to become a rope and not a spider web.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, for all of you who just took down all your Christmas lights and spent hours and hours untangling them, that's exactly what you do not want cost optimization to be an adventure. Use that term, Jason. You want it to be a journey, but certainly not an adventure. If it's an adventure, then something has gone kind of wrong.
It's funny, there's a customer that I work with pretty regularly, and he always refers to AWS, these are his words, not mine, as his crack cocaine addiction.
Oh,
right?
No.
He's like, it's so easy. Once you start spending money, you just can't stop. You just want to keep going at it and buying more and more stuff. And I'm like, all right, how do we bring you to rehab here? What's going on?
Well, it's really interesting. One of the things that people often ask me, as a partner of AWS, do they ask us to incentivize people to spend more on AWS? And the answer to that question is yes and no. Yes, in the sense that they want customers to be solving their business problems with the great tools that are available on AWS, but no, in the sense that once you're on a particular service, their mission is to try to help you achieve your goals at the lowest possible cost for that service. So they do drive for adoption, but they are not interested in and do not want you to be overpaying for what you use. And one of the interesting stats that people often kind of are surprised about is that AWS has never in their history raised prices. They just haven't. And in fact, they've cut prices something like, I don't know, 40 or 50 times over the years. So, you know, AWS really is in the journey with you. And one of the tiers of their well-architected framework is related to kind of cost and efficiency. So.
Yeah, it's that flywheel of you start your application onto the AWS cloud and everything's up and running. Then you start saving money by taking advantage of cost optimization. And now you have more money because you budgeted a certain amount for your application. You can put that into your new application, which you're going to go into the cloud because you see that flywheel just kind of work.
You got it.
Yeah, like that's AWS's strategy and it works, right? It's successful, so.
Absolutely. Okay, so just a quick reminder for those of you who are in attendance, start tossing those questions into the Q&A section or into the chat section. I'm watching for your questions. And while we wait for you to add some questions, I do want to talk about Reinvent. So for those of you who aren't aware, AWS has an annual conference every year called Reinvent. They're always making a bunch of announcements at Reinvent. And there certainly were some cost optimization kind of topics that were touched on at Reinvent. So would love to hear, Jason, Jeremy, did anything jump out at you from Reinvent that you'd like to share with the audience?
Yeah.
Yes, to the gentleman in the hat.
Yeah, so for me, the first thing that jumped out was EBS volumes. There are new types of storage available. And these new types of storage, they're not perfect for every situation. It's called, the big one that came out was Gp2 Storage. So for those of you who have been using, SSD-based disks on EC2, you were typically using Gp2 storage in the past. So let's talk a little bit about that first and what it gets you. So Gp2 storage comes with 3 IOPS per gig and 250 megs of throughput. Typically on an EBS volume, throughput, or on an SSD-based volume anyway, throughput's not going to be your limiting factor. IOPS are. What we see then is, for examples here, I guess, you have a 10 gig volume, you're going to have 30 IOPS. You have a 100 gig volume, you're going to have 300 IOPS. 1 terabyte volume, you're going to have 3,000 IOPS. And I think you can go all the way up to 16,000 IOPS. With Gp2 storage, if you needed more performance, you need more IOPS on a disk, there's 2 ways to get it. 1, you make the disk bigger, which means you spend more money. Or 2, you switch over to provisioned IOPS storage, which is insanely expensive. And there are certain cases and use cases where that makes the most sense and it's the right place to look at things. But it's a challenge. Like, I don't want to go and provision a 16 terabyte volume just because I need high performance on 100 gigs worth of data. That's asinine. So Gp2 storage kind of decoupled the storage costs from IOPS and throughput. In my mind, and it's probably different, but in my mind, it's all the same thing in the background, right? Gp2 storage looks at it and they gave you a 20% price reduction. So, you were paying 10 cents a gig in most regions in the US, you're now paying 8. And rather than charging you or giving you a certain number of IOPS per gig, they just give you 3,000 IOPS out of the gate. Your throughput is a little bit slower. So you get 125 megs of throughput, which for most applications is probably more than enough.
Yep.
There's certainly cases where you may need to add to it, but you now have the ability to control. If you need additional IOPS, you can go and certainly add that. You get the addition, and you can do all the stuff on the fly, which is awesome. It's like right click, boom, you're done. Yeah. So what we were looking at, I was looking with the customer the other day, is volumes that are under a terabyte and aren't crazy in performance requirements, flip them over to Gp2 storage. I mean, you're instantly going to save money and get more IOPS on that disk right out of the gate. And it's at a price discount, just like what you said, Jonathan. There's no increase in price. However, it got really interesting. So I was looking at this customer the other day. I'm looking at it right now just so I have facts in front of me. They have a 1 terabyte volume that's currently set up as a provisioned IOPS volume with 20,000 IOPS associated with it. And I was like, wow, is that going to make sense for us to move? That volume costs them $1,400 a month. I was like, holy crap, that's insane, right? So we did the math on this. So we said, all right, if we go for a 1 terabyte volume, I'm going to actually grab my calculator real quickly. So we did a 1 terabyte volume at 8 cents a gig. We're going to get $800. That doesn't sound right to me. That's 80 cents.
Yeah.
It's $80 rather. I'm sorry.
Yep.
Can't do math in my head anymore. I've become
Okay,
too
I was
blind.
about to say, come on, Jason, you can do it.
But that's only going to get us to 3,000 IOPS. So we need to get an additional 17,000 IOPS. And I was sitting there like, well, that's going to get really expensive really quick. And it's not actually. So
Yeah.
the provisioned IOPS, or not really provisioned, but to add additional IOPS to a GP3 volume, you're only paying half a cent per IOPS, right? So if we looked at the math here, we said, all right, I needed 17,000, I can't, I'm back in the wrong screen here, it was 17,000 IOPS times 0.005, I'm only adding another $85. So now I've taken this volume that was $1,425 a month, and the customer is now paying $165 for it.
It's amazing how much
I'll take that as a win.
Right? Like people often, the very first question that most people ask is they talk about compute because, compute is generally speaking what people spend most of the money on, but storage is becoming a much, much more interesting topic from a cost perspective, especially with, all of the levers that AWS continues to add around S3 with, the ability to lifecycle things out to lower cost storage and this GP3 edition. It's pretty interesting. So before we continue on this topic, I did see a question come in, so I want to make sure we answer that. And let's pivot to that real quick. So Tanner asked, how does Mission ensure high impact when managing RIs and savings plans? Is it a fully managed service? And that's a great question. So for those who aren't aware, Mission, as part of our Cloud Foundation managed service, we actually do provide recommendations around RIs and savings plans. So we'll tell you, here's some things that you could purchase which could save you money, here's how much, here's our recommendation. And if you want to go action that on your own, you're more than welcome to. Now, one of the key things about reserved instances is if you want to maximize your value, you often have to have an upfront payment of some kind. So there's partial upfronts and all upfronts. And the more money you put down and the longer you commit, the more you save. Well, Mission does have a fully managed service for reserved instances and savings plans that we call the RIO program, RIO. And that's actually powered by the same kind of platform that we use for Cloud Foundation in general. But on that, we'll actually take on the burden of buying, exchanging, and selling RIs and savings plans. And we do that automatically kind of on your behalf, and we'll even pay the upfront payments. Now, it's pretty interesting. We share in the savings with you. And managing RIs and savings plans, it takes a lot of effort and work. And so this really does eliminate a huge burden from customers. They tend to love it. So yes, we do have a fully managed service. Anything to add on to that, Jason or Jeremy?
Yeah, it's not only that we take the burden of managing it, it's that, much like what you were saying, and if you said this, just tell me to be quiet, but Mission's going to make those upfront payments for you.
Yes.
So there's an upfront cost with those RIs and with those savings plans. We make that investment for you, so you're not laying out that cash, which has certainly been attractive to a lot of customers that we've worked with. It's like, oh, I don't have to lay that out and I can still maximize my savings. That's awesome. Sounds great. Sign me up. So.
And the other thing to point out is that part of the reason that we can be so good at this is that we have kind of an internal marketplace, right? Yep. One of the common issues that people face is if they buy an RI and later they want to sell it, that's a lot of effort for them to do, right? Well, for us, we have a whole bunch of customers. And so if you have an RI that you want to offload or that we think you should offload, there's a pretty good chance we have a customer for it that would more than appreciate having that RI. And so we can leverage that internal marketplace to drive significant savings for you and to get customers, generally speaking, around like kind of 90+% optimized who are in that program. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, especially
Oh, go
the
ahead, Jeremy. I'm sorry.
marketplace. Yeah, because I was thinking about the AWS marketplace and how that's kind of AWS's answer for selling RIs, which, yeah, it can work. But there's so many questions related to, is this actually going to sell? What happens if it doesn't sell? What price should I
Right.
put down in order to make sure it sells? Being with a partner like Mission, we have all the customers, so we can just find someone a lot easier, and you can unload that financial burden if it's on your account for you. So, yeah.
We've seen that, yeah, we've seen that happen too. So we had a customer that came on board last year, and shortly before they came on board, they bought a bunch of RIs for Windows servers that happen to be running SQL Server. So A, those instances are really expensive.
Yep.
And B, they were like in a process where they were trying to get rid of stuff. So they had bought these RIs as standard RIs. Now, standard RIs you can sell in the marketplace, but you're on the hook for them. And a lot of people don't realize this. They're like, oh, if I'm not using it anymore, I'll just sell it. You're on the hook for it until someone goes and buys it. So
Right.
if you have an undesirable instance type or an undesirable operating system, there's a good chance you might be sitting on that for a couple of months before someone actually goes and picks it up. So those are all things that you really want to think about prior to buying these sorts of things and prior to rolling out some of that infrastructure too, right? So if you have the opportunity to roll out infrastructure running an open sourced database engine on an open source operating system, it's going to cost you a lot less to own it versus using something, you know, and I'm not knocking Microsoft or anything like that. There's certainly use cases to use it, but you need to be prepared for those costs. The other thing too to think about is typically you sometimes have higher people costs when you have to deal with, you know, open source applications. Right. It's harder to get support for those types of things at times. So those are they're all things to take into account. There's no black and white way to really measure that.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, good answers to the question. We got another one that just rolled in from Abigail, and she was curious that she said, does Mission provide some kind of discount for all or some services on AWS? And I would say it's a little bit nuanced. So the answer is that Mission, on a customer by customer basis, has the capability to help you access discounts, right? And it does depend on your usage and what you're doing. And we do a lot of private pricing negotiations on behalf of customers. So if you're a heavy user of CloudFront, for example, we are usually able to save you a significant amount of money by you know, letting you leverage some private pricing. And we've done negotiations for customers as well on EDPs, so enterprise discount programs, where there's commitments. We'll actually take on the burden of the EDP and be equal in it with you. So that's something we've done for a lot of customers. And we also, depending on your usage, we do have some programs that can actually provide you kind of flat rate discounts. So the best way to know, and again, it's very case by case, is to just reach out to us. So, you know, on our website, there's a contact us page. I definitely encourage you to go there. We'll remind you about that and make sure that the link gets put in chat later. But great question, Abigail. So we have one more question here. And excuse me if I get your name wrong, but I think it's Muj, M-U-J. Thank you for the question. The question is, do we also help manage RIs into spot instances and back again? And I'll let Jeremy and Jason answer this one.
Yeah, so unfortunately, you're not going to be able to move from RIs to spot. Instead, what you want to do is start at the beginning and say, do I want to run something on demand, or can I run it on a spot instance? And that depends on your infrastructure and how you architect. If you have a system in place where your instance can be interrupted and then maybe launch on some other type of instance or anything that might be created afterwards, then spot would be the way to go. You can definitely get a lot more savings out of spot than you can with RIs. But if you do need something that you have to have run it sticky, then on-demand would be the way to go. And then once you know that on-demand instance is going to be running for a year, then you're talking and looking at RIs or savings plans. So, yeah.
This goes back to, you know, what we were talking about at the very beginning of the call, yep, which is everything starts at the drawing board, right? You got to whiteboard this out and you got to plan your application out accordingly so that you can take advantage of this. We have a customer that I'll probably jump ahead a little bit here, but we have a customer that when COVID first started last spring, They run an online dating service, and they saw their usage all of a sudden go through the roof. The number of people joining into these, online chat rooms, their video chat conversations, whatever, was like spiking. Like, no one can go anywhere at this point, so why not have an online video chat with somebody and meet new people this way, right? Their site has seen tremendous growth over the last 10 months, and their costs have actually dropped.
Yep.
And they've dropped because they're almost entirely running a fleet of instances using spot instances. And they got really creative with it, which I thought was fascinating to me. They built their golden images to run on not only new instance types, but older instance types. So as AWS, one of the things that they've been known to do is, you have an old generation of instance. So I'm gonna just pick something out of thin air. So they're running on like C3 larges, right? C3 series came out like 6 years ago. C4s came out to replace them, C5s and C6Gs. They've got their images set to run a spectrum on a spectrum of different instance types. And the reason they've done that is as AWS releases new hardware, they drop the pricing, right? They either drop the pricing or make the performance better. But the old stuff doesn't go away right away. So all of a sudden, AWS has excess capacity on this old instance type, and they can pick that up in the spot market dirt cheap, like dirt cheap. So their costs have actually come down. They've probably saved $15,000 a month since the beginning of COVID, just by migrating their architecture over and using spot instances to run the majority of their infrastructure. It's been unbelievable to watch.
And I think that's the key thing is like spot is, it's different than RIs in the sense that you can't just adopt, it's not just a purely financial mechanism. An RI is a purely financial mechanism. And a spot instance, it requires architectural changes for you. Now, there are some, open source and commercial tools out there that will allow you to kind of sort of treat spot instances in a way that's a little bit more transparent to your architecture. And we have implemented those and recommended those sometimes for customers, but generally speaking, I tell people you're better off just architecting it properly to be fully aware of spot, because you're going to drive the most savings that way. And that's generally my recommendation is there's architectural changes. We can help you with those as a partner. We have consulting capabilities where we can kind of help you transform your workloads to take advantage of spot if that's something you're interested in.
Yeah, I actually run my Minecraft servers on spot instances. And anytime my server is about to get interrupted, it automatically sends a message out to everybody that's on the server going, hey, we're going to shut down the server for a couple of minutes. Please be ready. Save the server, saves a snapshot, and then it just boots back up whenever another spot instance is available. So, yeah.
That is an amazing customer story right there, the Minecraft spot instance. I didn't know that one, Jeremy. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to go teach my kid how to do that now. I never even thought of doing that. I don't know why. I was like, one of my boys is a big Minecraft player, and yeah, he's like, Dad, can I run a server in AWS? Sure, no problem. And I never even thought of like teaching him how to do that at this point. I don't know if he's ready for it yet, but that's awesome.
Here's another good question that just came in from Kieran. We have some servers that are only used a few hours in a day. What's your recommendation to handle that use case? Well, this one is actually a much more straightforward answer, and I'll let you guys chime in.
Jeremy, you look like you're like all ready to go with this one. Go for it.
Ready.
Because there's actually a lot of ways to answer it, right?
True.
Because one, you could just say, let's run on-demand instances for that period of time during the day, and then make sure that it turns off whenever we're done, right? And you could put guardrails in place so it automatically turns off whenever you're done. Spot instances is, of course, another way to go, but you have to make sure that there's capacity during that time. I'm actually a fan of seeing if you can move those servers over to like something serverless, like Lambda. Like that would be
You just took my thunder, man. Come on.
Yeah, all of those are just great answers. It just depends on what the use case is. This is going to be triggered by an event. If yes, Lambda, that's going to be the way to go. So.
Yep. Absolutely. And we actually have a follow-up question here that I think is perfectly aligned with this from Jason. Not you, Jason Gay, different Jason in attendance. He says, if you're planning a new application or API stack, how much of a cost benefit is there, if any, to build on Lambda and API Gateway versus ECS? And this is an awesome question. I think there are some, yeah, this is actually a very complicated question because it really, the answer is sort of, it depends. But there are definitely benefits for sure. So maybe I'll see what you guys have thoughts on it.
This is a tough one for me to answer. And mostly just, I have experience dealing with cost management in ECS and Lambda, but not actually architecting around it.
Yep.
And I would bring in our teams to help with that. But every system you design is going to be different. And it really, I can't explain how your stack works and what your application does. And I think this really goes back to how things are going to work. I don't have a good answer for you on this, but there's different ways of doing things. There's different mindsets. Every application, there's some people that are just like, we're going serverless, everything's going to be a Lambda function, or nope, we're going to containerize everything. The reality is sometimes there's things that are a happy medium of both.
Right, it's true, but I will say, like, when we talk more generally about what is the benefit of a Lambda from a cost perspective, it turns out that so every other form of compute available to you, including containerization, right, ECS, EKS, you're getting you're bundling together things into a larger kind of bundle, right? So with a container, there's potentially a lot of things going on inside of that container. With an EC2 instance, there's a ton of stuff that could be going on inside of the EC2 instance. With Lambda functions, you're actually breaking down your application into very small, discrete chunks of work. And the cool thing about that is it can really help you cost optimize in a very targeted way. So the granularity of data that you get, you can say, okay, I have a Lambda function that's executing, 1.3 million times this last month, and here's how much money that's costing me. If I can shave my execution time and optimize that function by 20%, that's going to translate into how much of a cost savings? 20%, right? It's this direct alignment between, your performance efficiency of your code and your workload and the actual costs you're going to get out the other side. And so, is it necessarily going to save you money over going with something like ECS? It depends on your workload. However, the benefit to Lambda is that you get a lot more granularity of cost around your application, and you can use savings plans for Lambda functions. So you can actually drive further cost savings after you've re-architected.
Yep.
I'm a big fan of Lambda. I'm a big believer in serverless in general, apart from the name, which I think is ridiculous, but there are servers there. Jeremy, anything to add on this question?
Yeah, I think me and you are kind of in the same boat as being more of a fan of Lambda than maybe ECS. I think ECS is great. It's just something that, for one, I kind of was unexpected. Like, I thought with AWS and Lambda and everything else, servers was going to be like the way the market goes. And then containers started mixing into it. I'm like, okay, now there's two different strategies. I think that's going to be the way forward. With containers, it really is how much can I bundle into the container? And is that worthwhile versus keeping everything separate and making it Lambda functions? And it depends on kind of what's going on. If there's a lot of Lambda functions and you can bundle them together into a container, then yeah, maybe containers is going to be kind of the way to go. Or does it make sense to keep everything separate? I know which Lambda functions are triggering, and then I can make modifications that way. So,
and the cool thing is now at Reinvent, which we were talking about earlier, there were some announcements on this topic, and you can actually now, I'm gonna turn my video off and on real quick because my face was frozen. Hey, there I am again. They did announce that you can now build Lambda kind of images. Lambda, how can I put this? You can create Lambda functions from container images.
Yep.
So that was one of the big obstacles to adoption for Lambda for a lot of customers that we talk to, is to say, well, I'm already containerized, and while I think I'm in a good use case for Lambda, I just don't have the time to completely retool everything. And the nice thing is you can leverage the existing toolkit that you have. You leverage part of your CI/CD pipelines, right? And you can start fiddling on Lambda quicker, right? And starting to see if it's good for you. All right. Wow, this audience is mighty. You're giving us some great questions today. I really appreciate it. Keep them coming, by the way, and any clarifications, anything you want to know about any topic under the sun from AWS and mission perspective regarding cost op, we're here for it. So one of the things
Oh, did we lose Jonathan again?
Oh no.
I don't know where
back,
he just
maybe?
dropped him. Oh, there he goes. He's back.
But now his microphone's off.
Yeah, now we can't hear him. Your mouth's moving, but no audio. It's
Yeah.
kind of fun. All right, I'm going to tell a story in the meantime. So
Cool.
it's story time. It's not really in story time, but for those of you who don't know, this isn't necessarily a reInvent announcement. This came out probably last summer or this past summer. AWS released a new instance type called, or new CPU or processor called Graviton 2 processors. And this has been one of the biggest ways we've seen customers save cost. So Graviton 2 processors are actually made directly by Amazon. They are not made by Intel or AMD, the two big players in the market. And one of the things that's awesome about them is because they're not made by Intel or AMD, AWS has instance types that are basically 20% or so less expensive. They tout anywhere from 20 to 40% better in performance, but I think that's kind of an arbitrary number, and it really depends on your application and your code that's running on it. So there's some great opportunities to move into these instance types and use them. Now, one of the things that you want to think about here is your application architected for it? So the Graviton 2 processor is not a traditional x86 or x64 base processor. It is an ARM-based architecture, which means many applications may need to get recompiled. But for Linux-based instances and resources, it is an awesome alternative. It will not run on Windows at this point. It is an awesome alternative to save you some significant money. They've recently announced that this is now not only available to EC2, but it's available in RDS and Elasticache. So if you've got any Elasticache instances running right now that are, M4s, M5s, even M3s, or R3s or R4s or R5s, you can literally flip those things over into R6Gs or M6G instance types. And because it's a managed service and Elasticache, so Redis and Memcache will both support running in an ARM-based architecture, take advantage of that cost. There's no reason to wait on that. Yeah, your cache might have to rebuild, find a maintenance window to work on that, but it is absolutely worthwhile in the cost savings you get out of that. Jeremy, have you seen anything else with that? Have you seen customers moving toward it as well?
I haven't at this time. I think it is going to be something that customers kind of gravitate toward eventually, right? Gravitate. It's really just impressive every time AWS creates more and more different types of instances, and then you just have an abundance of options now whenever you're trying to figure out what the optimization is, right? Again, I think Graviton's going to be the way to go forward. I see right now, and I think Jason, you see it, is the C series versus the R series, and then general purpose, right? So it's, do I go compute optimized? Do I go memory optimized? What's the R series? Every once in a while I'll see GPU instances, but again, majority of customers, it's a battle between those three. And now Graviton's there, and it'll be interesting to see how that changes the game. So
if you, by the way, can y'all hear me now?
yes.
Yep.
Yay. Okay. So if you are using, your workload is using something like Java, or it is using something like Python or PHP, you are very likely to be able to use Graviton, right? Just because AWS has actually built out kind of pre-compiled versions of all of the kind of common popular runtimes for many different kind of languages, and that's built into Amazon Linux too. So we've actually encountered a lot of customers who were, or I've encountered a lot of people who are skeptical that they were going to be able to use Graviton instances, but then once they put it to the test, it actually worked out great for them. So definitely worth an experiment, a POC for folks.
There's a question in the queue right now from Jason as well about if we have savings plans for Elasticache, can we use those with Graviton instances? So I'm gonna mildly correct for a moment. There are no savings plans right now for Elasticache. You can only buy reserved nodes. You can use them for any Elasticache-based instance, but you have to specify the instance type. So savings plans, which would normally be a compute savings plan or an EC2 instance savings plan, will only apply to EC2, Fargate, and Lambda. Elasticache is treated as a wholly separate service, and you would have to buy specific reserve nodes for that type of instance that you're running. So if you've got something right now that's covered, your best bet is to just kind of wait it out, because you can't sell them, you can't exchange them. Wait it out until they expire, and then buy new ones at that point in time.
Yeah, anytime with the instances, it's always M6, and then if there's an additional letter there, then you treat it like a different instance type. So M6.large doesn't work with M6G.large. They have to match exactly. They do sell cache.m6g large, so you can go and buy them, but it'll be something where if you already have a reserved instance, wait till it expires, and then migrate over to the Graviton instances, and then buy a new RI. So
fun. All right. So we've touched on storage and compute on this call already, and Kieran has actually asked a question around networking. So it's a question on suggestions to minimize EC2 NAT gateway charges.
ooh.
I will admit this is not an area of my own personal expertise on how to minimize NAT gateway charges, but maybe Jason or Jeremy might have some thoughts.
You want to take a stab at this one, or you want me to jump in?
I have a couple thoughts on it.
Right.
Anytime networking kind of becomes a question from a cost optimization standpoint, it's really where is your data transfer coming from and where is it going? And once you start identifying those key pieces, then you can start saying, all right, how do I optimize cost? If your NAT gateway is doing something like inter AZ or even across regions, something like that, there might be a different way in order to save money with that. VPC endpoints kind of comes to mind, especially like if it's going from S3 into your NAT gateway into something else. A VPC endpoint would reduce the amount of data that your NAT gateway is processing, so you're going to save money that way.
Yeah, and the reason for that is that you're not pushing stuff out to the public internet. Even though it's not really leaving AWS, if it goes out over that NAT gateway, you're going out to the internet, and then you got to bring it back into some other location. So, all right, I'm gonna go back to you. You can finish that. Just finish your thought. I just figured I'd give some color.
Yeah. Oh, you lost me on my train. Yeah. So VPC endpoints.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. VPC endpoints is the way to go. If it is internet traffic, then maybe the NAT gateway is not the way to go. Maybe you instead get an internet gateway. It's very similar, but internet gateway is more designed to go out to the traffic, and then you don't have to pay for that data processing cost that your NAT gateway is doing. Also, if you are doing your infrastructure, what type of IP address are you targeting? If you're targeting the public IP address on your instances, AWS is going to treat that as if it's going out to the internet, and you're going to pay the most for it. Private IP addresses is kind of the way to go, because then you're going to not have to pay for that public data transfer out. So
pay very close attention. As I say, the first thing I'm going to tell you on any of this stuff is pay very close attention to what your costs are before you make any changes, and make sure you have your VPC flow logs turned on.
Yep, that's a good point as well. And the other point on this topic I think is really important is data transfer is something that you can do private pricing on. So depending on your use case and kind of your scale. So that's another thing where you can come talk to us, and we can kind of take a look at your usage, understand kind of what your traffic looks like, and we can go to AWS and negotiate down your pricing in exchange for a commitment sometimes. So it depends on you, but it's definitely an option, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Okay, so I think we're continuing to filter through questions. One of the other things I wanted to touch on is a little bit about, I wanted to give Jason an opportunity to explain a little bit about what our Cloud Foundation service is like what's the customer experience for someone who wants to engage with Mission for cost optimization. What does it cost, if anything, and kind of what are customers getting out of it? And keep those questions coming, folks.
So our Cloud Foundation program, which is essentially, I'm boiling this down very basic, is a resale program for AWS, but it's a value-added resale program. So first thing that you get out of this is we give you access to a tool called Cloudhealth. It's the #1 cloud management platform in the market right now. Cloudhealth would normally charge you a percentage of their AWS spend. We give it to you for free, so there's no additional cost to you to use it. And Cloudhealth is basically like Cost Explorer on performance enhancing drugs, right? It's just gonna, 99% of what you're ever gonna need to do in pulling out reporting is all gonna be there for you, and it's all gonna be baked into the platform. You just gotta, and you can save your reports, you can subscribe to them, you can send a report to somebody else, you can slice and dice things in 17,000 different which ways. So that's the first thing. So you get access to Cloudhealth. The other thing you get access to is us. So Jeremy and I work on a team of cloud analysts. You could be one of the two of us. It could be some other members of our team. And what we're going to do is we're going to set a recurring cadence with you. And that meeting, it might be a monthly meeting, it might be a quarterly meeting. It really depends on what your requirements are and what your needs are. Excuse me. We're going to work with you every month, and we're going to put together some reviews of where are your billing trends, where are there opportunities for you to save, what's the front domino, where, in other words, what's the biggest potential savings that you have, and let's spend some time focusing on that. We're going to spend some time focusing on cloud security questions too. And oftentimes people are like, well, why do you talk about cloud security with cost optimization? And it's really not just cost optimization, it's cloud optimization, and there's a very big differentiator there. And in my mind, it's that differentiator really revolves around rather. If you can't secure your cloud properly, you're asking for those costs to go through the roof. Or you're asking for your cost to go to zero when somebody owns your account and takes everything down, because we've seen that happen in the past. Unfortunately, it's not a pretty sight, but it can happen. So we tend to focus on what are the easy things that you could be doing to prevent major outages from a security standpoint. I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that I'm a security expert. I'm not. But I can certainly tell you some of the best practices that that are in place and where there's potential security holes for you. So we're going to go through all that stuff with you on a regular basis, and it doesn't cost anything extra. That's the whole beauty of this program, is through our resale program. AWS costs the same through our resale program as it would if you were to buy it directly. You just get some added stuff. You get Cloudhealth, and you get access to our team. So if there's advice you need, or if you need a report built and you don't have time to do it, guess who gets to build that report for you? Jeremy or myself or somebody else from our team, right? If you're looking to try to understand your costs, or to figure out if it's a good use case to look at a private pricing agreement, we're going to help you with that. It doesn't cost you anything else extra to have us do that for you. And that's really our goal, is to really keep you guys happy and keep our customers happy and keep them coming back for more AWS services.
Nice, good description, Jason. And yeah, I mean, long and short of it is, it's a pretty successful program for us because it doesn't cost anything for customers to join. We, generally speaking, save customers a lot of money, and you get better tools, right? So we talked a little earlier about people, process, tools. That's how you conquer cost optimization and cloud optimization. People, we've got a bunch of experts like Jeremy and Jason. Process, we schedule regular cadence calls with you. We're regularly evaluating reports. We're scorecarding how the progress is going in your environment. And that's basically built on a methodology that we've developed over interacting with hundreds of our customers. And then tools, you get Cloudhealth, which, as Jason said, is absolutely like Cost Explorer in performance enhancing drugs. So it's a pretty cool program. And thanks for that description, Jason. I do want to get to this next question from Russell. He said, AWS allows conversion of reserved instances from one type to another through the cancel and rebuy process. And will Mission be able to handle this?
So let's see. So AWS does allow for the exchanging of convertible RIs for their process, right? So if you have a convertible RI, you can go to the AWS console. You can say, I want this instance type, change it to this one. They'll let you do that for that. And when you join Mission, you'll still be able to do that. We'll even be able to provide recommendations on if that exchange is recommended or if it doesn't make sense, that kind of thing. Yeah, so.
So there's that. That's specifically for EC2. So there's two types of RIs for EC2. There's convertible RIs in which you can do that. There's standard RIs in which it's more of a sell and then a buy, right?
Yep.
So you could sell again, this is what we were talking about before. You can sell a standard reserved instance. There's no guarantee somebody buys it. So certainly you want to have the more attractive instance types and operating systems before you try to sell it. That are going to go quicker. Like I tell you right now, you have some T2 or T3 mediums or T3 smalls that are running Linux in the marketplace. Those things are going to get snatched up real quickly.
Yep.
Start putting in M4 8x large running SQL Server in there with Windows. It's going to sit for a little while.
Yep.
And it also depends on which region you're in too. So convertible RIs and standard RIs, they're all constrained to a specific region. This is part of why I would say over the past year, we've seen most of our customers, at least for EC2, stop buying reserved instances. Is the savings a little higher for standard RIs? Yes. But the flexibility you gain from buying a compute savings plan far exceeds any of that stuff. It's like I can buy something, and aside from making sure that I'm not overcommitted on it, I don't really have to do anything with it. It's like I can let it sit there, and I can move resources around in my account. I can move them to a different region if I want, and it still works.
Yeah. And the key thing, go ahead, Jeremy.
Yeah, I was about to say, the number of RIs that AWS will allow to be canceled has obviously gone down since the introduction of savings plans, right? AWS definitely understands that people are going to change your infrastructure, and if you buy an RI and go, oops, that's not what I meant, then they're going to be more willing to cancel if you rebuy something. But now they're going to be, hey, why didn't you buy a savings plan? Right? If you knew that you were going to change your infrastructure, then you should have bought a savings plan and not an RI.
Right.
They might lock you into that commitment. So yeah, definitely go back. Let's look at architecting. What are the chances that your infrastructure is going to change? If it is going to change, savings plans is a recommendation. Maybe convertible, right? But I have not seen a convertible RI purchase in a while. They have really gone down because of savings plans. Savings plans just makes more sense in very much most cases, unless it's like I can only think of like one specific case for purchasing convertible RIs, and that's government contractors, where you have to build something very specific, and you could change in 3 years, but that's based upon the government commitment. So you get it for like 1 year. So.
Well, the other thing that's interesting about it too, and I think Jonathan touched on this earlier, we try to target a certain percentage of coverage, right? Like our baseline coverage that we look for is at least 85%. If we're considering somebody to be well covered, you're going to have somewhere between 80 and 90% coverage on those RIs. That's really difficult to get to when you're buying just reserved instances, because that means you start to have to start playing around with normalized units. You have to start thinking about, all right, am I going to get enough coverage in here? Am I going to be over that 85% number? Am I going to be under it? Savings plan, I want that 85% number. I'm just going to punch it in and I'm going to buy it.
Yep.
And you get, so sometimes even though the percentage that you're saving is a little bit less on a compute savings plan, you can still get more coverage. Now, there's also other ways to do this, and I want to try to make sure I answer Russell's question. The other question he had about that was, will Mission be able to handle this for us? The answer is yes. We can certainly help you with that. We can help you make these purchases, make these exchanges. That's not a problem at all. But we really want to look at what your long-term strategy is here. If we know that there's going to be growth in the account and you're comfortable with it, buying a certain percentage of your savings plan on a 3-year savings plan can save you exponentially more amount of, greater amounts of money over that 3-year term than buying, 3 separate 1-year terms.
Yep.
And it's certainly worthwhile. And I'm a little risk averse when it comes to spending money on anything. So it's trying to find that happy balance between, do we buy a little bit on a 3-year plan? Do we buy a little bit on a 1-year plan? Where is that number? Where's our customer's comfort level? Where's my comfort level? If the customer's saying, I want to buy all the way up here, and I'm going to be like, maybe you don't. Maybe you want to bring that down a little bit just in case. So,
and I think you've got to keep in mind, Mission, we get the same levers to pull as you do, right? So there's nothing that we can't do that you can. But there are some things that we can do that you might not be able to, right? Because we have this internal marketplace, we've got a lot of customers, we can exchange our RIs more quickly or sell them more quickly. and we can do it all on your behalf. So to us, things like savings plans in our eyes are tools in our tool belt, and we can apply them across our customer base to drive as maximize savings for customers. So, we're at 5 minutes left, so we probably won't have any time for any other questions, but I do want to wrap up a couple things. So first is, while I am wrapping up, please let's put up our last poll, which quickly will ask you about whether or not you might be interested in talking to us. And this again is anonymized, but we'll also reach out to you afterwards. If you do want to reach out to us, we did paste the link into chat, missioncloud.com /contact-us. So please do click on that and reach out. We'd be delighted to talk to you. We do no cost kind of 1 hour consultations as sort of a kickoff call to kind of understand what your needs are and to see if we're a good fit for you. And we'll tell you all about what we can do in more detail. So definitely let us know if you would like to chat. You can reach out through the Contact Us page. Good, I'm seeing results flow in. About half of you have voted so far. I see a thank you from Tanner for the questions, or for the kind of panel today. You're welcome. It's been really fun. Y'all gave us some awesome questions. Lots of good answers today as well. Thanks to Jason and Jeremy as well for being here. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up the poll real quick. It looks like a significant number of you would love to chat with us. So I look forward to hearing from you on the Contact Us forum on our website. Thanks again, Jason and Jeremy, and thank you all for attending. We'll see you again soon.
Take care, guys.
Yep. Thank you, everybody. Cheers.
Thank you.